Welcome to Conversations on the Coast, San Francisco's premier author interview program. And today we are joined by what I would designate as a rather special guest, author who comes from our local publishing community. Her name is Bridget Kinsella, and she has written a book, Visiting Life, Women Doing Time on the Outside. It's published by Harmony Books. Thanks for stopping by.
Well, thank you very much.
I have one simple first question.
Okay.
I looked you up in Publishers Weekly this morning.
Okay.
And they say you're a correspondent. Your publisher says you're a West Coast editor. What are you?
I am the West Coast editor for Publishers Weekly. I write about all things that happen in books. Actually, anything west of the Rockies, because from an East Coast point of view, that is West Coast.
That takes care of it, doesn't it?
I don't mind. It's a nice territory.
There are many different ways that one can describe your book. One of the ways that kind of intrigues me is a way which you yourself described it. You say at one point in an interview that this book is about a weird thing I did. What weird thing did you do? I
became romantically involved with a man serving life without parole for murder.
That is weird.
It is weird, and it's not anything I would have thought I'd do in my lifetime. It's not a book I'd ever thought I'd write, to tell you the truth.
But the point is, it did start in a kind of literary way.
Yes, it did. A friend of mine taught creative writing at Pelican Bay State Prison, and he asked me to read some of his students' work. And so I read a lot of the work, and this Rory Meehan's work really jumped out at me as somebody who had a lot of talent, so I wanted to help him maybe get it published. I never wound up helping him get his books published, but we did develop a friendship and a romance, and he turned out to be the person who helped me find my own path to healing.
A lot of things happened on that trip that you began that way with a fellow's name.
Rory.
Fictitious name is Rory. And one of the things is that you got to know a lot, it seems to me, about the families of the incarcerated.
I had a glimpse, to tell you the truth. I don't know if I would call me even an expert at this point. I was provided a glimpse, and I became friendly with some of the women who were visiting men that they had married after they had gone to prison. Mm-hmm. All of the women who I include in my book got involved with the guys after they were incarcerated. Even if they knew them before, they didn't get involved with them until afterwards. I think I wanted to answer the question for myself. Why does this happen, and how does this happen?
Why am I doing this?
Right.
Yeah.
And also, when I got involved with Rory, he made me promise that I wasn't going to stay with him in that relationship because that wouldn't be good for me. Running off to marry him would not be a happy ending for me.
No.
His whole purpose in loving me was to try to help me get back into my own life. And that's why it's called Visiting Life, because on some levels I was just visiting my own life.
Talk about one of the women that you got to know with whom I think you say you still stay in touch. Nancy,
yes.
Nancy the stripper.
Former stripper. Let's be straight about that.
I'm sorry.
She's an amazing person. When I met her, she was traveling back and forth from Southern California, where her home was, up to Northern California, like 14-hour drive, to go visit her husband in prison.
The prison that we're talking about
is Pelican Bay.
And it's in Crescent
City, California. So, we'd hang out and talk about things. Over the time that I've got to know her, actually, her husband was moved to another prison. And she came to find out that he was cheating on her and actually letting another woman come visit him. And they broke up, actually. She is no longer with him. I'm happy to say Nancy has remade her whole life. She's always trying to improve herself. Even when I first met her, she's now in college. She's married to someone else, and they're expecting their first child.
Oh, wow.
It's a lovely story. I mean, I'm really happy for her that she got to have these things that she didn't even know she wanted when I first got to know her.
Another woman that I remember is Naomi. And Naomi is the only woman you write about, at least that I recall, who walked around with what I would call the desperate hope that the man
he would
that
get
she
out.
was involved with would get out.
Yes, Naomi's husband, and the thing is, I did not interview the guys because we're not allowed to cross-visit. I can't visit with somebody I'm not authorized to visit.
Right.
So I can't have these conversations with their husbands, by the way. So it really is the wife's point of view. But Naomi's husband has a life sentence, and she thinks he's going to get out. She just believes it with her absolute faith. She just believes it. And he tells her this. Mm-hmm. And I tried not to judge anything. I try to let people tell their own stories. So it's like, well, you believe what you want from that.
Visiting life really does take the reader, in my opinion, behind bars. And we'll find out what it's like and about a couple of surprises when we come back.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at Jim Foster COC and email jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
Visiting Life, Women Doing Time on the Outside by Bridget Kinsella. That is what we're talking about today. It's a book published by Harmony Books. And usually at this time when we come back after a break, I read part of somebody's review. But in this case, I want to read your own review.
Oh, okay.
It says...
My own being Publishers Weekly.
No, this is...
Okay, from my...
This is you wrote independently at Publishers Weekly,
okay,
I
go
assume.
ahead.
It says that you said, middle-class white girls who make National Honor Society and the cheerleading squad do not grow up to visit men in prison. And yet, that is exactly what happened to me.
Right.
This is the weird thing that you did.
It's the weird thing that I did, yes.
What I want to try and share with the people listening in is, because I just came back from a trip the other way, south, and driving along 101 and 5 and 99, you pass several prisons.
Right.
Going where I
You can't help but look.
No, and you look out there and you say, my God, that's so foreign. I never want to go there. I never want to be close to it. And you decided, for good reason, to go there,
right,
to Pelican Bay. Talk about what it's like to enter and
sure. The first chapter is my first visit, actually. Mm-hmm. And that chapter, well, all the chapters flew out of me, but that one really did. I sat down 11 o'clock in the morning one day, and by 4:30 in the afternoon, I had 5,000 words. And it's pretty darn close to what's in the book.
Yeah.
That really is the experience of my first visit. I was nervous. It was the summer before I turned 40, and I was trying to come to terms with all of these things I had wanted in my life. I was married and divorced and devastated by that experience. I had wanted children, and I don't have any, and I was turning 40, and, that's a milestone. But nobody would let me say this out loud.
You had a hell of a good birthday party.
I did have a good birthday party, but that came after the summer of being 39.
Back to prison.
Yes. So I went to visit Rory as an escape for myself. I figured, what the heck? Do something nice for somebody else. Get out of your own head for a while. And so that's why I went up there. And when he met me, he recognized all the pain I was carrying around, all the sorrow. And he basically said, give me all of your pain. Let me lock it away so you can get better and get back into life again. And that's what I did.
Let me stop you right there. I found that the most incredible thing for a man to say to a woman, or anybody to say to anybody, give me your pain.
Yeah.
And yet there was nothing savior about him.
No. He wasn't trying to save me. He was really trying to help me get over all this pain. The one thing about prison is they understand sorrow. That's what prison's all about. Mm-hmm. And Rory's a pretty extraordinary person. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yes.
And extremely sensitive. He did commit murder. Yes, he was 19 when he was sent to prison. He's now 34. He was just 30 when I met him. And he had done a lot of rehabilitating of himself, his soul, his mind, everything. And so he had already come to that realization about life anyway, and he helped me come to realizations about life. So it was the wounded helping the wounded.
One of the minor notes in that first chapter, I think it's in the first chapter, maybe I picked it up elsewhere, was the kind of immediate friendliness among the people doing the visiting, for the most part.
Yes. That visiting room is sacred to anyone who's involved in the prison system because it's the only place these people get to be with their families. And so respect is ultimate. Everybody respects everybody else's privacy. You don't really look at other people visiting each other. That's the only time you have to be together. So there's ultimate respect. There's a lot of things I would have liked to have put in here. One of the things that didn't come out is the way the races react to each other, because I'm a white woman, so my experience was as a white woman. I would like, it's another book for a black woman's point of view, and I would actually like to read that book. That's not mine. These are really the women I met along the way.
You found some interesting good things along the way. One of them is something called ROCKs, Reaching Out Convicts to Kids, or ROCK, the ROCK.
The ROCK program. That's a wonderful program. One of the women I knew, her boyfriend was involved in that. And basically they take kids who are at risk and they bring them inside Pelican Bay, and they get it straight from the prisoners what it's really like. It's not such a cool thing to be sent to prison, you know? And these guys give it to them straight, and hopefully it keeps some of these kids out of prison.
One of the surprises in the book, I thought, was an experience you had through another program called Get on the Bus. Oh,
life-changing experience for me. I met a group of Catholic nuns who do this Get on the Bus program. It was actually, after I met them, I was like, oh my God, please don't make this mean I have to be a nun. Good Catholic girl that I am. But no, what the nuns were showing me...
Please your mother.
I don't know about that. But what the nuns were showing me is that there's other ways of being a mother. And so they opened my eyes by going to visit them. They're bringing kids to visit their moms in prison. It just opened my eyes.
Visiting life's glimpse of prisons and the women who visit them is fascinating stuff. But there's much more to the book, Visiting Life. Just stay tuned.
Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at Jim Foster COC and email jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
This is Jim Foster. It is Conversations on the Coast. The title of the book today is Visiting Life, Women Doing Time on the Outside. The author, the West Coast editor of Publishers Weekly, Bridget Kinsella. The publisher is Harmony Books. And a woman who's written two books with very short titles, one Stiff, the other Spook. Her name being Mary Roach has this to say. Step aside, Miss Jones. There's a new Bridget in town. Bridget Kinsella's maximum honesty portrayal of a soul broken and mended in the most unlikely of settings is moving, gripping, funny, and achingly real. One of the most moving pieces in the book, I think, is the story that happens with that Kids on the Bus, the Friday Mother's Day trip.
The Get on the Bus program, yeah.
Yeah. And you focus on a number of the mothers. But the one that fascinated me is the scowling woman.
Right.
And she finally sees her daughter across the room. She leans forward on her knees, looks down, quickly gets up with tears in her eyes and brings her hands to cover her mouth as she catches sight of a blonde girl of about 5 dressed in a frilly violet dress, complete with white tights and white patent leather shoes. The little girl swooshes her head back and forth, searching around the room for her mother. The woman with the French braid rocks back and forth with her hands up at her mouth as in prayer and waits for her daughter to see her. Then the little girl's eyes pop out wide and her mouth drops open as if the sight of her mother is like Christmas, her birthday, and Easter, all rolled into one. Her mother kneels down and the girl leaps into her arms, nearly knocking her over. The mother picks her daughter up and extends the hug to her own mother. The girl is giggling, but the women have tears in their eyes. That, to me, sums up the whole business of the subtitle, Women Doing Time on the Outside.
Thank you. That's one of my favorite scenes.
Sight.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think, both as a writer and as a person at the same time. As a person, I was just so incredibly moved by this mother seeing her daughter for the first time in maybe in about a year or so.
Yeah, and she seemed so dead and cold.
Oh, when I first saw her, she scared me. She had this permanent scowl on her face. She's a lifer. She's not getting out, I found out, actually. And lifers do not get visits, what are called family visits in the more proper way of saying it. People call them conjugal visits.
Yeah.
But that also means visits with their own children. And that's why she wants to have visits with her children. The day goes on. She actually removed her daughter's loose tooth that day. And I was so incredibly moved as a person. But the writer in me was saying, oh, my God, this is such good stuff. So I was a little torn there. But I really wanted to share that these women, they're mothers. I mean, they have love for their children. They may have done horrible things and made terrible decisions in their lives.
Yeah.
But they are still mothers.
But the mother is there.
The mother is there. It's been about 2 years since that event happened for me, and that program has grown to a weekly program.
No.
Yes, through no effort of my own. This is definitely through the Get on the Bus people.
Weekly program?
It's a weekly program that now goes to the 2 women's prisons in Chowchilla. And the Department of Corrections actually is involved with this, which is wonderful, because what they've realized...
Not only wonderful, it's totally amazing.
It really is. But what the Department of Corrections realized is that these women who have ties to their own families are better inmates. They have a better chance of not coming back to prison, which is what we'd like to stop that revolving door, which is why I've decided to work with children who have mothers incarcerated. Again, just something I'm starting to do.
It's had a long-lasting effect, this one trip, hasn't it?
Yeah, life-changing.
Because it focused on one of your...
What I wanted in life. I wanted to be a mother myself.
Yeah, not being a mother.
It took me 2 more years to mourn that, by the way. I had to really grieve not having my own children so that I could look forward at this, what I could do for somebody else, not just the children, but maybe this mother from a horrible place. So I'm just embarking on that now. But I had to let go of all the grief.
As the book unfolds, it's very clear that Rory's doing many, many wonderful things for you. Mm-hmm. And you're doing some great things for him also. And at one point you write, the tears rush out of me without warning. Within Rory's voice, his heart, his mind resides the place where all of my feelings can swirl around freely. And I cry, cradled in the knowledge that he understands everything churning inside of me without my saying anything.
Yeah.
That's an amazing relationship.
That's the shorthand that you have when you love somebody. Yeah. And that can happen in all different kinds of love, but something very particular when it's romantic love. And even if we couldn't stay in that romance, that doesn't change. He likes to say it's like we were first loves and our lives went on different paths. There's always a connection there. It's like none other.
Yeah. What's been achieved is, I think this comes at the end of the book, the statement, what's been achieved is the union of 2 people who set each other free. That's
the end of the book right there. That's the last sentence.
I don't think you can accomplish anything more in a relationship than that. The book is Visiting Life, Women Doing Time on the Outside. The author, Bridget Kinsella. This has been Conversations on the Coast, and I'm Jim Foster.
Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at Jim Foster COC and email jimfostercoc@gmail.com.